I thought I was marrying a man. Turns out, I was just funding a promotion. That's how it began, and how it would eventually end. We stood at the altar in front of 200 people. Guests clapped. Cameras flashed. My father's smile stretched wider than it had in years. He'd chosen well for me, a well-dressed, ambitious man named Jason Cross. He wasn't the love of my life. He wasn't even a close friend. He was the man my father thought I should marry. So I did. We dated for 3 months. Everything about him felt curated. Our dinners were scheduled by his assistant. His compliments felt rehearsed. He always talked business with my father, barely spoke to me outside of formal occasions, and yet, the engagement came fast. My father approved. My mother had passed, and I'd stopped arguing with my father years ago. Jason said all the right things. I want to build a life with you. Your family is like home to me. I'll make you proud. What he didn't say was, I want access to your family fortune. After we married, things didn't change much. No honeymoon, no passionate phase. He moved into the estate, into the master suite, and into board meetings he wasn't invited to. But my father didn't mind. He liked Jason's drive. Said he reminded him of himself when he was younger. I went back to work at the family foundation, handling charity programs and PR. To Jason embedded himself in corporate affairs, offering ideas in meetings, shadowing my father. In the evenings, we barely spoke. We had dinner together when necessary. We shared a bed, but rarely any warmth. It felt like living with a polite stranger. That was our version of love, distant, quiet, and mostly for appearances. The only comfort in the house was Lena. Lena had been with us for years. She was originally hired as part-time help when I was 17. She stayed through college, through my mother's illness, and through the funeral. After that, I asked her to move in. She wasn't just a maid. She was someone I trusted. Lena was calm, reliable, and discreet. She ran the house flawlessly, no messes, no delays, no drama. She knew what I liked without asking. She brought coffee before I woke up and folded my clothes before I noticed they were missing. She was part of the family. I never had reason to question her loyalty. She had been there longer than Jason had even known my name. At first, I thought Jason barely noticed her. He was too busy chasing boardroom influence. But then I started to notice the little things. One night, I walked into the kitchen and found them talking. Jason, smiling in a way I hadn't seen him do with me in months. Lena, laughing, head tilted, eyes on him. It didn't seem wrong. But it didn't feel right either. Then it happened again. In the hallway. In the garage. On the patio. Always a short conversation. Always ending quickly when I entered the room. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself not to be paranoid. But then, I found the messages. It was a Saturday morning. Jason had gone for a run. His tablet buzzed while I was in the living room. I glanced out of habit. A message preview popped up on the screen. I still remember last night. I froze. I tapped it open. It wasn't labeled with a name. But the thread was long. Dozens of messages. Some innocent. Some not. She doesn't even notice. We're careful. She's busy pretending we're still a couple. Don't worry. I've got the inheritance part locked. My hands were shaking, but I kept reading. You deserve better, Lena had written. You always see me, Jason had replied. That was when I realized, I'd brought the enemy into my home. Jason hadn't just married me for money. He had been planning a future that didn't include me at all. And Lena, the one I trusted, the one who knew every detail of my life, she wasn't an innocent bystander. She was in on it. For weeks, they had been using my home, my resources, and my silence. While I played the good wife, they played lovers behind my back. And I had no one to blame but myself. I didn't confront them right away. I waited. I watched. I needed to be sure. Every evening, I tracked Jason's whereabouts. Every task Lena did, I rechecked. I even installed a second phone line to monitor their communications. What I uncovered confirmed everything. Meetings that weren't real. Errands that ended 2 hours too late. Whispered calls outside the guest wing. Late-night footsteps in hallways that should have been empty. They were careful. But not careful enough. I compiled evidence. Saved messages. Printed logs. Photos from discreetly placed cameras. If I was going to end this, I wasn't going to do it screaming. I was going to do it with facts. I wasn't the naive daughter anymore. And Jason was about to learn that marrying into money doesn't mean owning it. Part 1 word count, 10-20 words. Let me know if you're ready for part 2, where the confrontation begins, and the revenge quietly unfolds. I didn't rush the confrontation. I waited. Jason was confident, maybe even arrogant. He assumed I'd never question him. He moved through our home like it already belonged to him, like my father's empire would eventually be his. Lena played her role well, polite, efficient, loyal. But I saw through it now. Every step I took from that point was calculated. No scenes. No screaming. Just quiet preparation. I opened a private bank account in a different name. I contacted a lawyer outside the family firm. I moved certain personal assets under a trust that Jason couldn't touch. It took weeks, but it was necessary. I wasn't just walking away, I was stripping them of the security they thought they had. Then, I scheduled the dinner. Jason came home from work. Lena had already set the table. Candles lit. Plates placed perfectly. He looked surprised but pleased. "You cooked?" he asked, loosening his tie. "No. Lena did," I said, pulling out a chair. "Sit. Let's eat." He poured wine. I let him talk about a new business proposal he had pitched to my father. He seemed excited, probably because he thought he was close to being promoted to director. I nodded along. I didn't interrupt. When we finished eating, I slid a folder across the table. He raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "Proof." He opened it. Inside were printed screenshots. Messages. Dates. Photos. Bank transfers. Access logs. Even Lena's fingerprints on the guest suite access panel. His smile dropped. He didn't say anything at first, just flipped through the pages slowly. "I know everything," I said calmly. "How long it's been going on. How you used me. How she helped." Jason tried to collect himself. "It's not what it looks like." I leaned back. "Don't insult me." He sighed and closed the folder. "Okay. Fine. It started a few months ago. I didn't plan it. It just happened." I nodded once. "And the messages?" He paused. "I got carried away. So did she." That was all I said. Jason looked uncertain now. "What do you want from me? An apology?" "No," I said. "I want you out." He laughed, like it was a joke. "Out of what?" "This house. My life. My father's company." "You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I already did." He stared at me. I placed a second folder on the table. "These are the legal changes I made. Your access to the company account has been revoked. Your director nomination was withdrawn. My father knows everything." Jason's jaw tightened. "You told him?" I showed him. He stood up suddenly. "This is ridiculous. You think you can just erase me? You were never really here to begin with." He opened his mouth to argue, but I stood up too. "Leave the key on the counter. Your car's already packed. There's a driver outside. I suggest you use him." Jason didn't move for a while. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe he didn't. Eventually, he walked to the front door, paused for a second, then left. Just like that. No last words. No apology. No drama. I didn't look at Lena that night. I let the silence speak for me. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen. She stood by the sink, eyes red. She had clearly heard everything. "You want to explain yourself?" I asked. She didn't speak. "I trusted you." "I know. You lived in this house. You watched me marry him. You watched him lie. And you still helped him." She finally looked up. "It wasn't about money." "Then what was it about?" "He listened," she said. "He paid attention. You didn't." I nodded slowly. "Then maybe you deserve each other." She looked away. "What happens now?" "You'll leave. Today. I have nowhere to go. You should have thought of that before betraying the person who kept you fed and housed." Lena didn't beg. She didn't cry. She packed quietly and left before noon. By evening, the house was empty. The silence felt different. Cleaner. I called my lawyer the next day. Finalized the annulment. The prenup made it easy. Jason got nothing. I didn't tell anyone else. No public scandal. No interviews. I let Jason explain his absence however he wanted. Most people assumed we were just another failed rich couple. I didn't correct them. In the weeks that followed, I refocused on work. I cleaned house, literally and figuratively. Every person who had access to my life was reevaluated. Trust had a new definition now. Jason tried to contact me once. An email, short and vague. I didn't respond. Neither did my lawyer. Lena didn't reach out. Neither of them mattered anymore. What mattered was that I didn't fall apart. I didn't turn it into a spectacle. I handled betrayal the way it should be handled, quietly, surgically, and with finality. I had married a man for duty. He married me for wealth. We both got what we deserved. But I came out stronger. He came out with nothing. After they left, the house felt like a hotel lobby. Quiet. Clean. Empty. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort you, but doesn't threaten either. Just there. I didn't rearrange the rooms. I didn't get new furniture. I didn't change the locks. I didn't need to. Everything had already shifted without physical changes. Jason never came back. He tried reaching out, twice. Once through email. Another time through a mutual acquaintance. He asked if we could talk like adults. I ignored both. There was nothing left to say. He wasn't someone I owed closure to. Lena stayed silent. No messages. No calls. She vanished without resistance, the same way she operated in my home for years, quiet, smooth, invisible. I returned to routine. My mornings started with coffee and briefings. My days were filled with foundation meetings, planning events, reviewing partnerships. No one in the office asked about Jason. Everyone assumed we were simply taking space. It's what rich couples do when things go wrong. I didn't correct them. I noticed how efficient life became without him. I didn't have to explain my calendar. I didn't need to pretend interest in board meetings where he shadowed my father. There were no more social dinners I never agreed to but attended anyway. The background noise of performance was gone. A few weeks in, my father asked me over lunch, "You planning to tell the public anything?" I shook my head. No need. He didn't push. He never liked drama. He was a man of business. Jason had become a failed investment in his eyes. Nothing more. Without Jason constantly inserting himself, company meetings returned to a familiar rhythm. I noticed subtle relief on the faces of a few executives. Turns out, he wasn't well liked. Just tolerated because of his connection to me. At home, I hired a new housekeeping service. Rotational. No live-ins. No personal connections. Just workers with uniforms, schedules, and contracts. It wasn't personal anymore. I preferred it that way. The change helped me think more clearly. I could finally focus without wondering who was lying behind my back. One evening, while reviewing some financial proposals, I came across one that had Jason's name in the early drafts. It was a joint project he had pitched with a foreign firm. I set the folder aside and marked it for legal review. If he tried to recycle any part of my father's business plans, it would be handled. There was no emotion behind that thought. Just process. I didn't stalk him online. I didn't ask where he went. I didn't check if he ended up with Lena publicly or privately. It didn't matter. Whether they stayed together or not had nothing to do with me. That chapter was closed. Sometimes people expect dramatic endings. Shouting. Public shame. Revenge. But most endings are quiet. Like a door you didn't realize closed until you turn around and see a wall. A month passed. Then another. I started sleeping better. Eating normally. My schedule stayed full, but no longer heavy. One afternoon, my assistant came into my office. "There's someone downstairs asking to speak with you," she said. Didn't give a name. I asked for a description. Brown hair, light jacket. Said it's personal. I didn't move right away. Just stared at the window behind my desk. Then I said, "Tell security to walk him out." No exceptions. I didn't need to know who it was. I didn't need to give space for old faces. If someone wanted access to me now, they had to earn it, not manipulate it. Another 2 weeks went by. That's when an envelope arrived. No return address. Handwritten. Inside, a short note, "I was wrong. I see that now. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here." No signature, but I recognized the handwriting. Lena. I didn't respond. I shredded the letter and moved on with my day. It wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about punishment either. It was about decisions. She made hers. I made mine. We just ended up on different sides. Life didn't become magical after they left. It just became honest. Eventually, my father asked if I planned to remarry someday. I said I didn't know. He nodded, didn't push further. I think he realized it was the wrong question. The better question was, do you trust anyone again? The answer? I trust myself. That's enough for now. 3 months passed without mention of Jason. He vanished from my world completely. Then his name appeared again, on a news site. A short article buried beneath industry updates. Former CFO candidate Jason Cross launches startup with former domestic staff partner. That was the headline. Buried in the article were the details. Jason had started a property tech company. The article painted him as ambitious, disruptive, misunderstood by the corporate giants. His co-founder was listed only by first name, Lena. It didn't take much effort to connect the dots. Their photos were attached to the article. Jason in a too-tight suit, forcing a smile. Lena behind him, wearing clothes she could never afford while working for me. They looked like they were trying too hard to prove something. Maybe they were. The journalist referred to them as a modern couple redefining loyalty and business. I closed the tab without finishing the article. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shocked. I had expected him to reappear eventually. Men like Jason don't disappear. They rebrand. I flagged the article and sent it to my legal counsel. My father's company still owns several of the models Jason was now promoting as original designs. I didn't make it personal. I made it legal. Within a week, a cease and desist was issued. His new venture backed down from 2 planned launches. Quietly. No public defense. They knew better than to invite scrutiny. Around the same time, I began hearing whispers. Clients pulling out. Partners hesitant to associate. Jason's name didn't carry weight anymore, it carried baggage. Corporate memory is long when it comes to betrayal. People remembered how fast he climbed, and how quickly he disappeared. Then came the email. I know you saw the article. I didn't mean for things to go the way they did. But I need your help now. Investors are pulling back. One word from you could fix that. That was the message. Straightforward. Shameless. I didn't reply. He sent another 2 days later. Lena says you'll never forgive us. Maybe you won't. But this company was supposed to be a fresh start. Don't kill it before it begins. Again, no response. There was nothing to gain by engaging. His decisions had consequences. I wasn't one of them anymore. At work, things remained steady. My father mentioned him once, just once. Jason's learning the hard way that short-term plays don't build empires, he said during a quarterly review. That was the end of it. I kept my focus where it mattered. The foundation launched a new program. Our reach expanded. A few new directors joined the company, all of them selected with more caution this time. At home, things were quiet. No letters. No calls. No sudden visitors. Until one Thursday evening. I came home from a dinner event. The gate guard looked hesitant as I pulled in. There was someone waiting outside earlier, he said. Didn't give a name. Just stood there. Said he didn't want to disturb you. I asked for a description. Medium height. Brown jacket. Looked tired. I didn't have to ask again. I knew it was Jason. He hadn't tried to come in. Just stood outside the gate for an hour. Then left. Maybe he thought I'd meet him. Maybe he just wanted me to know he came. I went inside. Didn't speak of it again. Some endings don't come with closure. Just silence. But 2 weeks later, I received an envelope at the office. No name. No return address. Inside was a single page, you were right. About everything. I lost it all. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know, this was never about love. It was always about the money. I see it now. That was the final thing he ever gave me, honesty. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say, is nothing. He took his shot. He used the wrong people. Burned the wrong bridges. And ended up where people like him usually do, on the outside, looking in. I moved on. Quietly. Permanently. The longer Jason stayed gone, the easier it was to forget he'd ever been part of my life. Not in the dramatic sense, he was never deeply woven into it. More like a chapter one skimmed through too fast, realizing too late it wasn't worth the time. His company folded 6 months after the launch. Investors pulled out. The funding dried up. Someone forwarded me a blog post where Lena had tried to distance herself, calling the business a misguided venture with poor leadership. Her name disappeared shortly after. I didn't follow either of them beyond that. What they did next wasn't relevant. What they said, who they blamed, where they went, it didn't concern me. I had learned to separate noise from necessity. And they were both noise. At the company, I focused on the numbers. Expansion was slow but solid. We opened new regional branches. My father stepped back a little more, trusting me to handle larger roles. Board meetings shifted from performance reviews to strategic planning. I preferred it that way. When asked in interviews about my personal life, I kept it simple. Private, I'd say. And better that way. Not cold. Just concise. There were invitations, of course. Events. Dinners. Business proposals that came with personal undertones. I declined most of them. Not because I was hurt, but because I valued my time now. I wasn't going to waste it entertaining people who wanted access rather than connection. It wasn't about closing off. It was about filtering out. I made changes around the estate. Subtle ones. The guest wing was locked permanently. I didn't need reminders of who used to live there. The master bedroom was redesigned. New colors. New layout. I kept the same windows, though. They still had the best view of the city. The house, like my life, was the same on the surface but different in structure. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a private business summit. Not unusual. I'd done it before. But this one caught my attention because of the guest list. Jason's name was on it. Not as a speaker. Just an attendee. He'd somehow secured a late registration through a lesser-known firm trying to stay afloat. The irony didn't bother me. I didn't feel anything, really. I just circled the date and confirmed my appearance. When I arrived at the summit, I didn't look for him. I went through the motions. Introduced the panel. Spoke on resilience and strategic leadership. Took questions. Gave answers. It was routine. Halfway through the networking session, I saw him, off to the side, near the refreshments. He looked smaller than I remembered. Same face, but duller. Eyes that didn't shine with arrogance anymore. Shoulders not as square. He didn't approach. Just looked once. Then looked away. I walked past him without stopping. It wasn't cruel. It was deliberate. I owed him nothing. Not a nod. Not a smile. Not a moment of recognition. He had cashed in all his access long ago. Back at work, I didn't mention the summit to anyone. Life kept moving. We launched 2 new projects that month. One of them funded a scholarship program. I visited one of the schools quietly, without press. Talked to some of the students. Heard their plans. Their stories. It reminded me why I stayed focused through everything. This was the part that mattered. The rest? Background noise. Later that year, I sat down with my father for a long overdue conversation. "You're not the same as before," he said. "More precise. More practical," I said. "You think that's good or bad?" "Neither. Just useful." He nodded. "I should have done a better job protecting you. You did what you thought was right. I handed you a man with ambition and a clean resume. Not loyalty." "True. But I handled it." He didn't argue. We had built our relationship on silence and business. This was the closest we came to emotional honesty. And it was enough. The next morning, I updated my will. Transferred a portion of my shares into a contingency trust. Built systems to protect what I built, in case anything like that happened again. I wasn't paranoid. I was just prepared. Jason taught me that much. The last I heard of him, he'd moved to another city. Freelancing. Not corporate. Small jobs here and there. He kept a low profile. Probably knew better than to try anything big again. Lena, as far as I knew, left the business world entirely. No digital footprint. No interviews. Nothing. Maybe she went back to a quieter life. Maybe she ran from the embarrassment. Either way, her absence suited me. I didn't miss them. Because closure doesn't always come from conversations or apologies. Sometimes, closure is just watching your life stabilize after chaos, and knowing you were the one who fixed it. A full year passed. No messages. No letters. No unexpected appearances. The story of Jason and Lena ended without a finale. No headlines. No consequences beyond what they created for themselves. It faded the way most bad decisions do, quietly and without celebration. The house ran like a system now. Staff rotated weekly. No one lived in. Everything was documented. Everyone had boundaries. I kept my personal and professional life separate. That line was never blurred again. The estate felt less like a home and more like a base. It served its purpose. I spent most of my time at the Foundation's central office. Our new mental health initiative launched across 6 regions. Numbers came in monthly. We didn't just track progress, we verified it. We didn't chase headlines. We measured results. That's how I like things now. Measurable. Visible. Accountable. One afternoon, during a regional visit, I was asked to speak to a room of young professionals. Someone in the back raised a hand and asked, "What's one decision you regret?" I paused. Not because I didn't have one, but because I didn't see it that way anymore. "I don't think in regrets," I said. "Only in results. If something teaches you to protect what matters, it's not a waste. It's a lesson." They nodded. They wrote it down like it was wisdom. But to me, it was just fact. Jason's chapter was one of many. A short one. A thin one. He entered my life pretending to be a partner and left revealing what he truly was, a transaction in a suit. And Lena? She was never the threat. Just the tool he chose when I wasn't looking. A convenient variable. Replaceable. Forgettable. People asked sometimes, quietly, if I ever felt lonely. My answer was always the same, no. Not because I was surrounded by people. Not because I filled my time. But because I stopped expecting loyalty from the wrong places. That eliminates most of the loneliness. I didn't remarry. I didn't date. I didn't post curated updates to suggest happiness. I simply lived. Cleanly. Quietly. Effectively. Some friends drifted. New ones came in. My circle stayed small. Efficient. I traveled when needed, not for escape. Every trip had purpose. Every schedule was built with intention. That's how I rebuilt trust, with structure, not promises. One evening, I got a message from an old acquaintance, someone who used to work under Jason briefly. "Just heard what happened back then," he wrote. "If you ever want to talk, I'm around." I didn't reply. The truth is, there's nothing to talk about. The story isn't about betrayal anymore. It's about what followed after. Because betrayal is just the match. What you do with the fire is the real narrative. In my case, I built something out of the ashes. Not for revenge. Not for redemption. Just for stability. Years later, I was asked to contribute to a leadership memoir. A collection of lessons from women in business. My chapter was titled, "Protecting Power After It's Taken for Granted." I didn't include names. I didn't talk about Jason or Lena. I focused on the framework. How to identify blind spots. How to set boundaries. How to spot hidden agendas before they unfold. The chapter was well received. But what mattered most was how many people read it and quietly understood what I meant without needing details. Some lessons don't need full stories. Just clear warnings. When I looked back, there was no pain, just data. Jason taught me that people who come for wealth without value always reveal themselves. Lena taught me that trust without proof is just risk. Neither of them taught me anything about love. Because love wasn't part of it. That part, I built on my own. In the way I carried myself. In the way I recovered. In the way I didn't collapse, expose, or lash out. Sometimes, strength looks like silence. Sometimes, the best revenge is no response. And sometimes, the best ending is simply not looking back.